right, everybody, welcome back. I'm SeanDo, and as you've noticed, I'm not on the go. Like many of you, I'm working from home. And today, I am honored, I mean really honored, to have with me Ashton Smith to talk about how she's helping out in the community. Ashton, welcome.
Thank you, Sean. I'm very excited to be here. I really appreciate you making the time.
Well, I am so excited to have you here because what some people may not know is that you were recently named by Raleigh magazine to be one of the top 30 in their 30s as an award. So congratulations on that.
Thank you for that. It's a pretty incredible list of people, and I feel really honored to be included in it.
It is a huge honor. You know, a lot of people don't know that recently I was named Boston one of the top 50 in their 50s. But then I found out they were talking about my pant size and not my age. So it became much less of a compliment for me. And anyways, so it is an honor to have you on this program to talk about giving back to their
Thank
community
you.
because during this challenge, we do have a lot of people who need help. And I have heard through the grapevine, and I do listen to the grapevine every day, you've got a pretty creative way of approaching the give back during this crisis. And I'm hoping you can tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that I think is really hard for people in this time is this general feeling of helplessness. We're all in our houses, kind of dealing with our own worlds and those things. And there comes this sense of, how do I make it better? What can I do to accomplish things? And I think it's important for people. I mean, all of the science says that giving back and that helping others really is a way to benefit ourselves. There's actually a lot more benefit for us sometimes than there is externally. And so finding that way to do it is helpful. And I like to think about it in sort of three categories. And we talk about it in the nonprofit world a lot like this too. People can give their time, they can give treasure, or they can give talent. And, time can be a little bit harder right now. People are feeling really stressed for how they fit everything in, how they juggle it all.
Right.
And not everybody feels comfortable leaving. And so virtual volunteering is a great opportunity, a great way to do something like that. But I know even here locally, you may have seen there are still some nonprofits that are really in need of volunteers for food delivery and packaging and all of these things that are working hard to ensure that they've got physical and social distancing measures in place. So that's a great way to give back if
Yep.
you've got the time and the ability to do it. Treasure is an easy one. Nonprofits need our financial support, and every little bit makes a difference. And you and I are really fortunate. Citrix is matched 2-to-1 employee donations. So I think that's just another way to make another impact. Every little bit counts. And even in our local office, we've got a virtual food drive. So you're really combining the ability to give virtually, to use the resources of like a food bank or something to maximize their impact without ever having to leave your house.
Right. And the food banks
But the other,
really need a lot of help these days with the canned goods and the packaged food items. And there's so many spots around that you can just drop them off without having to interact with anybody.
absolutely. And if you're making that weekly trip to the grocery as it is, or you're having things delivered, it's certainly something to think about. Or again, a lot of these food banks have economies of scale on their behalf. So sometimes just giving that donation that you would have spent on the groceries can be just as helpful for
Right.
them.
Right.
So the other thing to think about is talent. How do you give your resources to people? We have so many skills that are so valuable to not just the nonprofits, but our neighbors, the people around us, our families. So what kind of business wisdom can you offer? Or can you pick up some groceries for your neighbor while you're out? Or can you lend your skills in some other way? I think we had a couple of colleagues who set up virtual babysitting recently, for example.
I
So
heard about that. Yeah.
so I think there's just a lot of different ways to kind of give back. And for me, it starts with what do I have that I can give right now? Because it's not always going to be time. It's not always going to be treasure. And maybe talent's not always the best fit, but starting there for me is where it works.
And everybody, I know one of my sons watches a kid show, and one of the themes is everybody has a talent. So if you're sitting there saying, well, there's nothing remarkable about me, and I may sit there and say that, but everybody has a talent that they can offer to somebody in need. I see a lot of people reading children's stories, so you probably have neighbors who have kids are at home, or your kids are at home, and I mean, there's just endless ways that we can give back. And I love that 3T approach that you have, and it was time, treasure, and talent. Did I nail those?
Nailed it.
All right. Now, Ashton, what inspired you to give back? Because I look at, all the things that you do, and really there had to be something that inspires you to say, I have something to give back. Let me look for ways to give back. What was that?
I think I've always been a person who's involved in a lot of things, and part of that stems from um, wanting to be helpful, wanting to do my part. I get a lot of joy out of contributing in some way. And so starting to figure out where can I do that? What skills do I have? Because when I was young, I certainly didn't have the time or the treasure to give to people. So it really was
Yeah.
more talent based and sometimes time based. And so thinking about what causes are really important to me, what things are I'm passionate about. And then once you're sort of in it, you realize that every little bit does have an impact. And so it's easier to sort of continue to grow and to continue to be involved once you start. Um, and you're probably, I think a lot of people are this way, that there's something really satisfying about being able to contribute to the betterment of the world around us.
It is. It is such, selfishly giving back and helping out people who are in need it does so much for my mental health, especially during a current crisis like we're in. It really does do so much more for me, I feel, than what I am actually contributing or giving back to the community.
Yeah, and even I know I sometimes, and sometimes the people that I know feel really overwhelmed by the sense of need. There's this empathy, this natural empathy that we have when we see all the chaos in the world, and separating ourselves from that a little bit and being able to compassionately find ways to support the world actually helps reduce that overwhelming sense of empathy. I mean, there's so much science to how
Right.
important it is for our own well-being to give back.
Now, Ashton, if we have viewers out there who are like me, they're sitting in their house and they're wondering how to get started in a give back philanthropic manner, where can we point them to? What is step number one, do you think?
So I think if you're looking at, the local area here in Raleigh, there's a couple of great websites. Activate Good is a resource that pulls together a lot of nonprofits and nonprofit resources. So that's a great place to go to get a good list of who needs help. There's also a website stood up called thinklocalraleigh.com.
Okay.
And while that's, again, very Raleigh and Triangle focused, that's going to have a lot of ways to give help, but also get help. I know that that's constantly being updated as well. But the thing if people are not in our area that I would encourage them to do is when you have an idea, just give it a quick search online.
Right.
There's a really good chance that somebody else is already working in that space and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can maybe join a nonprofit that you've never heard of or reach out to volunteer or find out who else is doing that work so that you're not spinning your wheels trying to figure things out and you're plugged into a better network.
Totally agree. Take your search engine of choice, Google, Microsoft, whatever it may be, and just do a quick search on your local charitable, organizations. And there's so much out there, you can't help but fall into something that you can give back.
Yeah. And what are some of your favorite causes?
My favorite causes is the food bank. That's one of them. I find it's so easy for me to just buy those extra canned goods, those extra groceries, and drop them off at the food bank shelters. There's several outside the churches that are around here. And then one of my churches happens to provide shelter for women who are in need, and I like to contribute to that anonymously.
That's wonderful.
So there's so many different things, and then anything. I have a very soft spot and a very personal connection. Anything. Sorry, for children with disabilities.
Okay.
Is something I certainly give anything and everything I can do. But Ashton, you said something to me that reminds me of how I like to kind of summarize these whole programs. If you're familiar with a children's book called The Little Prince, and I'm going to butcher the name. So until somebody corrects me, by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and it basically goes, one thing that matters is the effort. And that's truly what we're talking about here, is the one thing that does matter is taking the effort and helping out and finding the ways that you can give back and contribute to those in need, especially during a crisis like we're facing now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful.
But Ashton,
I
I
would
want,
say,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, I would say the other two other things to remember is one, staying home is also serving.
Yeah.
So don't put too much pressure on yourselves to overdo it. That's an important thing to remember, but also, especially for parents, you asked how I started to get involved, and a lot of it was watching the people around me be involved in their communities. And as family members, aunts, uncles, parents, we have this opportunity right now to show the people around us what it's like to be a part of their community, how they can contribute. And I think that's a pretty powerful thing as well.
Yeah.
So the effort is what matters.
I totally agree, and that is so critical, especially right now. But hopefully, we continue this even after the crisis is over. This inspires a lot more people to do a continual give back to the community in which they live.
And the need is not going away.
No, it is not. That's one thing we will always have. But Ashton, I really wanted to thank you on behalf of our community, and that's the home community here as well as the
Thank you.
broader sense of the word community. I really want to say thank you for your participation in this little program, but also thank you so much for everything that you're doing to help out those in need. It really, really touches me and makes an impact. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you letting me help spread the word here.
Of course. All right, everybody. Remember, keep your eyes out for ways in which you can help and give back to your community. And we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.